Conservative activist and Virginia GOP Central Committee Representative Ron Hedlund of Virginia got some attention online over the weekend. So, Hedlund is very conservative and obviously believes that the Republican Party has a message to send to the world. Now, Hedlund, a part of that group who is very much against Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, and the wokeism of this administration, and really wanted to make a statement. Now, I want you all to remember that many within the GOP, especially within Virginia, have made a declaration that they want to protect children from the groomers and the pedophiles that fill the rank and file of the Biden administration and the woke ideology movement. Mr. Hedlund, though, decided to protest against the Biden administration and woke ideology by, I quote, posting the Porter penis in his front yard. The Porter penis is a 16-foot penis with semen shooting out, labeled "My Kids," and has Biden's face on it. It was displayed at the RF&P Park in Henrico County, Virginia, just outside of a baseball field where children were playing baseball. He also had a giant air sleeve dancer thingy with the words, "Fuck Joe Biden," and another sign that read, "Stop grooming our children." In a video that has been posted to YouTube, a man approached Hedlund in the parking lot and asked him to take down his sign because, quote, "it's a kid's baseball game." Hedlund, defending his sign of a giant masculine organ shooting its potential reproductive content, said they love it. They absolutely love it. And then claimed it was his First Amendment right to have such visual representations on display in front of a minor's baseball game in public. Another man approached him saying that there were 13-year-old children around. In response, he said, "Have you seen how many 13-year-olds draw this kind of stuff in the bathroom stalls?" This is where I don't understand the conservative right. This is where I don't understand the conservative Christian evangelical fundamentalism that is currently rampant within the Republican Party. Because they will scream all day long about comprehensive healthy sex education and say, this is just sexualizing our kids. They will talk about transgender people and drag performers living their life in front of kids, telling the world that we should protect children from this form of delusion and perversion. They will shut down libraries over the inclusion of anything that includes LGBTQ people as offensive. And yet, this man has a right to take a very obvious phallic image, put the face of the President of the United States on it, show it in such a way as an ejaculatory effort, and then claim that that image in front of children is his First Amendment right. I want someone to make sense. I want somebody to make this make sense to me. I want somebody on the right. I want somebody on the right to come in here and tell me how this is not exactly what you want to get rid of. I want somebody on the right to come in here and tell me how this is somehow better than my sitting here dressed like this. I want someone on the right to come in here and tell me how this can be supported as free speech. I want someone to tell me that. I will leave an open microphone for anyone, but there's only 16 people in here watching this. There's only 16 people in here, and I can guess that of the 16 people, 14 of you follow me regularly, just to hear the news. The two who are sitting in the background, they are not going to be outspoken anyway, because they don't typically, they just like to watch the program. And no harm in that. But I would love for somebody who is on the right to come in here and tell me how this man is doing something better for children, less harmful to children than what I am doing right here, right now. I am almost willing to restart this live, get hundreds of people in here, repeat this story, and ask them to do this. I'm willing to do that. But you know what? I'm not going to. And here's why. Because they won't be able to provide it. They won't be able to make a cognitive and coherent argument. They will say it is his right to say that. They will announce that it's nothing worse than the left is doing. They will say that he was in public and therefore he can do whatever he wants to in public. But the funny thing is that this is the exact example of what they want to get rid of, but you are going to have people standing up for this man and supporting him. In fact, let me just do this. All right? I want to see something. I just went to the YouTube page. I just went to the YouTube page of this man. Okay, here's the video on this. Here is let's do a little something. Why don't we?
Back from a successful evening at I guess it was or at the P Park last night, Wednesday night. Hometown favorites, Glen Allen boys. I think they're 13. Glen Allen 13s playing in, I think it's Babe Ruth. I don't think it's Little League. I think it's Babe Ruth. Maybe it's called the World Series. I don't know what their tournament is. But anyway, I was informed that they were playing a Hawaii team last night. The game started at 7. I got there about 7:30. And I think Friday night they play at 4 o'clock Friday afternoon. But got a really good reception for the F. Biden sign. There were a couple parents, Darren's and Karen's, that made themselves known. But because of their concern, and also at Henrico Parks and Rec came over after I've been doing this for I don't know how many years, and months specifically in Henrico Parks. But they told me that I was not allowed to display signs in the park. Got that on video. Made a short out of it this morning. But due to the overwhelming response and the couple of Karens and Darrens, we are now going to plan on Friday, tomorrow, at 4 o'clock. Glenn Allen is scheduled to play another Hawaii team, or the same one, I don't know which. But we're going to debut the Porter Penis inside RFP Park there. Not in the stadium, not in the ball field or anything, but in the park that is open to the public. There was no admission yesterday. I specifically asked if there was a charge to go past the tent they had set up, a shelter out near the front of the parking lot. They said no. And a couple people were so upset over the F. Biden flag that I said, well, what about what you see in their books in the libraries where these kids go to school? And Henrico County is just as woke. Let me tell you, they politicize and they publicize and they put on a pedestal woke policies and such, and transgenderism in Henrico schools. We'll be targeting the school board here. We've already done some protests at the school board offices and such. But Friday, tomorrow, 4 o'clock, at RF&P Park, which is the Trump Manor Park, or Meadow Farm, I think they also call it that. There is a museum in Trump Manor Park. But we are going to bring the Porter Penis. That is the 16-foot cartoon caricature with Biden Sucks, the title, on top. And look forward to seeing that and seeing if we have any more scholars that make their presence known with Henrico County Parks and Rec, telling me that you're not allowed to display signs in the park. Anyway, take care. God bless America. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Okay, so that was the premeditation phase of this effort. All right? Now, hold on to this, all right? Let's see if there was a follow-up. Now, very quickly, let me just say, that video right there got 800 views. All right? The videos after that, of the actual event, all have crossed the 1,000 view. You know there are kids here.
I can't hear you. Okay. It's not going to do anything to you. Can they come over here and get pictures of it and laugh at it? Yeah. Do I have your permission? You're smart. Most everybody says, no, you can't film me.
No expectation of crowd.
There you go. Yep. You know more than half the people here. Need to learn what? What do I need to learn? What side am I on? Why am I being gross? Have you seen what's in their books at school? Every fifth grader draws this on the bathroom stall.
Okay, now, that's his argument. Those are his arguments, okay? That's his argument. What is in the books at the school, and they are drawing these things, these very same things, in bathroom stalls. Here are the comments on that video right there. You know there are kids here. I would have played dumb. I didn't think kids would be here at a Little League field. Kids are being groomed at school, but everyone thinks you're the problem. Keep standing. You are a voice for all awake people. Kids who are raised with morals and values won't have a problem with it. Their parents would be supporting it and explaining it to them. It's a word, best they learn. Good thing he's here to regulate the world's thoughts. And I would bet that at least 95% of those people say worse than what's on your sign themselves in front of the children, their children. Somebody said, I don't have a problem with this per se, but the hypocrisy does annoy me. Why does the First Amendment protect your right to display these things, but shouldn't protect the right to read certain books in schools or have books read by drag queens? To which no one responded. There are a lot of comments about the Dick's Sporting Goods sign. Now, I don't know if any of y'all have shopped at Dick's Sporting Goods. I mean, it's a big box sporting goods store. Yeah, the name of the business, which is as far as I know, at least regional within the country, if not all over the United States, Dick's Sporting Goods is a company. It's funny how they tell you to grow up when they are the ones acting immature. I think someone needs to go back to civics class. Great location up on the hill. So, their comparison is that Dick's Sporting Goods is equivalent to the cartoon image of a masculine phallic symbol. There is a 16-second video. I'm not going to show it on here because this would just get me off the air completely. But there is a 16-second video in his content that shows the full image of this sign and two what appear to be teenage boys behind the sign being photographed by this individual. "13-year-olds with a better sense of humor than their grandparents. I love it. That mother is cool as hell." Now, this is how kids are supposed to be groomed. Family-sized content. Nothing woke about those kids. Well done, kids. Kudos to your mom. Most of these kids have seen this kind of stuff before. They don't look at it or see things the way their parents do. If their parents knew what they did when out of their sight, it would probably shock them. They're going to live and learn someday. You have got to be so completely off of the ability to think coherent thought, to somehow not see that this is the exact same thing that they are fighting. Case in point, people living in Dayton, Washington, where more than 70% of the people voted for Donald Trump in the last election, will decide in November whether to shut the library over a dispute about a book by British author Juno Dawson called "What's the Tea?" Opponents of "What's the Tea," represented by Dayton resident Jessica Ruffcorn, told the Seattle Times the library is targeting kids with sexualized content. Ruffcorn and a number of parents approached the library to move the book from children and young adult to a different section of the library, claiming that it was not age appropriate. The Seattle Times reported that the group then asked the library to move about a dozen more books away from the children and young adult section, including "This Book is Anti-Racist" and "Our Skin, A First Conversation About Race." Former library director Todd Vandenbark declined to move the book, stating, "No one has the right to make rules restricting what other people read or use, or to make decisions for other families." Vandenbark resigned in June, and his replacement, Ellen Brigham, created a new parenting section of the library and moved sex education books there. Brigham also reportedly moved the young adult nonfiction books into the adult section. Brigham told the Seattle Times, "We're walking a really fine line between listening to people who have arguments and remembering that the majority of people who haven't said anything still use the library. We have an entire community to serve." Ruffcorn told the Seattle Times, after having met their request, having met the demand of this parents' rights group, this is why we're not going to win. This is why we are not going to win. Let me establish this, and I am getting so upset right now. I am getting so upset right now. This is why we are going to lose. Jessica Ruffcorn and a group of concerned parents asked the library to move these books from the children and young adult section of the library, claiming that they were not age appropriate. The former library director resigned after having said he was not going to do it, and the new library director complied with the request. The new library director created a parenting section that put sex education information in that section, and any young adult novels or nonfiction books, were moved from young adult to the adult section. The library complied with the request. Roughcorn responded in the Seattle Times that they do not accept that the books had been moved. And so they handed out petitions to close the library. Why? Why did they want a petition to close the library? Quote from the Seattle Times: "We do not trust their motives to move the books." This is why we won't win. This is why we won't win. Because they have no moral ground to stand on. They have no ethical standards by which they live by. When they don't get their way, which means the total removal, they asked for one thing. The library complied with the one thing. And now they moved the whole entire argument to say, we don't trust why you did that. The reason why they did it was to give in to their goddamn desires. The reason why they did it was to give them what they wanted. And what was their response? We don't trust your motive in doing it. Then what in the absolute hell can we do? Here's what we can do. We can go away. That's what they want. And don't use the whole moving the goalpost thing with me. Because you know what? This is not about goalposts anymore. This is not about goalposts. This is about them controlling everything they can get their fucking hands on. They don't want the goalposts moved. They want the whole stadium torn down. They want the stadium to be razed to the ground so that they can then build up whatever edifice they want. Fuck the goalposts. This is no longer about goalposts. We are losing. We never made it to the goal line, much less moving the goalpost. The library director created a new section and moved books into that section. The books that they wanted moved out of the young adult section were moved out of the young adult section, but then they said, we do not trust the motive for why they moved them. When you have no integrity, when you have no ethical or moral ground upon which you stand, you do not have to worry about being consistent. You do not have to worry about being truthful. You can continue to move your position. This was in Washington. This was in Dayton, Washington, Columbia County. So, we have, again, let me go back and rephrase where this came from. The context of this block of story. GOP Central Committee Representative Ron Hedlund went to a 13-year-old baseball league game with a 16-foot sign of a phallic emblem with Joe Biden's face attached right at the head. You heard me right. A GOP Central Committee representative went to a 13-year-old league baseball game with a 16-foot image of a phallic image and argued that he had every right to be in that place with that image, laughing as teenagers were taking pictures with that sign, saying that, one, it's worse than what's in the books, and two, well, 13-year-olds draw worse than this in bathroom stalls. Sarah, get on the fucking page, okay? We are not talking about that. Jesus Christ. Focus, okay? The chair of the local Republican Party in Missouri threatened city council members with political retaliation if they approved the reappointment of a gay pastor to the city's public library board. Pastor at First Christian Church in St. Joseph, Missouri, Brian Kirk, has served 3 years on the St. Joseph Public Library Board of Trustees, and his term was meant to end June 30th. But according to KCUR, a local anti-LGBTQ plus pastor stirred up controversy surrounding the appointment of this pastor to the library. What was supposed to be a routine reappointment has now caused the city to suspend all nominations to its boards and commissions while the appointment process is updated. Josh Blevins is the pastor at Grace Calvary Church and urged St. Joseph residents to oppose the appointment again of Reverend Kirk, citing the support of Reverend Kirk for the LGBTQ plus community. Blevins wrote on Facebook, "We don't want our public libraries to become indoctrination centers for the LGBTQ movement." At the same time, Stephen Greer, chair of the Buchanan County Republican Central Committee, sent an email to a council member urging this one to vote against Kirk's reappointment. Writing, Greer said, "This transgender and homosexual propaganda is pure evil. It is designed to destroy the family, to undercut traditional American values and our way of life, and ultimately institute governmental control that will undermine our city, county, state, and nation." The city council member responded that he agreed and reported that the mayor had pulled the nomination. The mayor went to Reverend Kirk and said, "I'm sorry, I respect you, I think you've done a great job, I just don't want this controversy, and I think that the best way to not hurt you, not hurt the library, not the city, is to just stop right here." Again, someone tell me how a pastor who has served 3 years in a position never created a problem, never caused a controversy, never made an issue, is now somehow unqualified to continue that job in a reappointed position. How is that possible? How is it possible that an individual who has shown their willingness to work within the system as it is somehow unfit to continue moving forward? Please tell me. I'll wait and sip my coffee. It's not realistic. What it is it is an effort to remove people because they do not like them. They do not like who they are. They do not like who they represent. They do not like what they represent. And therefore, because they do not like them, they are willing to silence them in contradiction to the rights granted to citizens and visitors within the United States. This is absurd. This is how we know that it is a genocidal movement. This is how we know. Because now they are starting at the local level and they are removing people who represent the voice of the LGBTQ plus community. This is a genocidal movement, and it started with the transgender people. It is now moving against the wider LGBTQ plus community. This was a gay pastor who had done the job without complaint. But because of who he was, this is what was told. I assure you that you all will be held accountable for each of your votes on every issue, but especially on this one. If in the future any of you ever seeks election to other offices on a partisan basis within this country, or as state representatives from this district, you will have to meet our organization in a formal meeting for vetting purposes. Unless the BCRCC endorses you, you cannot by law file and run as Republicans for those partisan offices that you may seek. By state law, we do not have to accept your filing fees. If you choose to renew the appointment of Pastor Kirk and the continuation of the left-leaning majority that has existed on that board for a long time, then we will know whom to hold accountable and whom we can no longer trust to lead the city. That is blackmail and extortion. Open extortion. To use your position and a threat associated with your position to get your way in a political decision? My God. Are we not now the most corrupt of those places that we have been calling corrupt forever? Are we not now guilty of doing those things that we believe to be reprehensible in the worst political climates around the world? To openly state that if you don't fall in line with the way we want you to do things, then you will not be able to move forward in any aspirations to suit your desire to try to do something good for your community. How in the hell is this any different? How in the hell is this any better? How is this possibly, in some form, shape, or fashion, meant to be a democratic society, a Republican society, if you are using threats and intimidation and extortion and blackmail? It's not. The idea of being in a free Republican democratic system is dead. It is no longer the United States of America. The Constitution is no longer our binding agreement as one people in this nation trying to establish a country for all of its citizens. This is not the United States that those who fought, bled, and died for ever wanted to be. And yet, somehow, our desire to see the rights of all people recognized, our desire to see the equal and equitable treatment of all people, our desire to see that civil rights, human rights, constitutional rights are respected for every living soul within the boundaries of the United States is somehow so detrimental to the life and the blood of this country that you are willing to violate that very same Constitution and the very same religious principles you claim that it is built upon. This is not a United States. This is an effort at tyranny, fascism, and genocide. Case in point, where is the outcry on this story? Alex Crowe, a 30-year-old Catholic priest, was instrumental in hearing confessions at the McGill-Tulane High School in Mobile, Alabama. He also visited classes and chaperoned trips with high school students. This summer, he traveled to Europe accompanied by a just-turned 18-year-old female. But wait, there's more. At first, Mobile authorities said that they did not believe that the relationship was sexual, but they've since released 2 letters that Father Crowe wrote that suggests otherwise, including a love letter to the teen on Valentine's Day. In that note, he professed his love for her, claimed they're married, and said he tried to steal some flowers from a Virgin Mary statue, but there were too many people around. The priest wrote, "Before we fell in love, I promised to always care for you and protect you like a father. I still look at you and see a child, but in the best way imaginable. You are mine and no one else's, and I will always be a father to you until I die." In another letter released by the sheriff's office, Father Crowe wrote, "The Virgin Mary and Jesus told him and the teen to go to Europe and to not return from the trip. We know how this looks, but we are doing what we are told. Do not worry about defending us. This is hard for her too, but she knows she will always be safe if she does Jesus' will." I'm waiting for the groomer comments to please pop up. I'm waiting for the conservatives to come in here and tell me how much of a pedophile I am. Please, humor me. Because I love irony. The priest had been noted for a history of, shall we say, problematic behaviors. Father Crow often screamed about demons and tried to perform exorcisms on and in front of students, including in a trip to Guatemala in 2022. Parents had complained about Father Crow to the Archdiocese of Mobile, and the county sheriff said that Father Crow had been told to stay away from another young woman in the past. Parents at the school were worried he was brainwashing their children, performing exorcisms on them and providing alcohol for them at bonfires. One parent said their child has refused to come home after Father Crow convinced them their household was controlled by demons. In June, Father Crow was allowed to travel with a group of students to Italy. The family of the 18-year-old flew to Italy to try and convince her to come back, but Father Crow would not let them be in a room alone with her. The sheriff in this case stated she's happy where she is right now and doesn't want to come back. She's in love. The sheriff also added that he has no doubt that Father Crow has been grooming the girl for some time. At the same time, we have this story. The Archdiocese of Denver, Colorado, and two of its parishes have filed a lawsuit against the state's Department of Early Childhood. The Archdiocese and the two parishes want to seek to overrule an anti-discrimination policy held by the state's universal preschool program that protect LGBTQ plus families and students. According to a spokesgroup for the Catholic Church, enforcing non-discrimination policies violates the First Amendment and the right to free exercise of faith. Because participating schools must accept students regardless of religious, sexual orientation, or gender identity, the Catholic organization views the Colorado program as incompatible with Catholicism. Make it make sense, people. Make it make sense to me. I mean, legitimately. Somebody make this make sense to me. I am sitting here, a 52-year-old transgender woman who is a former United Methodist pastor with a clean record of behavior going back to the 1990s. And yet, I am such a threat to the well-being of women and children in certain states that there are now laws against me being able to live my life. And yet, a Catholic priest who had a less than sterling history, who had far less time within his clergy appointments, and runs off to Europe with a just turned 18-year-old. Somehow, I'm the threat. Make it make sense. Because if you can make that make sense, I will fall in line with you. If you can make it make sense how I'm a threat, then absolutely, I will eat that up and I will accept it 150%. I will make it my life's identification if you can show me how I am a threat, and yet a Catholic priest who is nearly half my age is not a threat. I'll wait. I've got a good 30 years of life left in me, so I'll hang around till you can. The reason why no one can make this make sense is because of the absurd level of indoctrination that the right, conservative, evangelical, fundamentalist, fascist theology has integrated within United States culture. People will tell you, oh, I'm not religious, I don't believe in any of that Jesus shit, and yet then will repeat their party lines. Somehow, this is logical. That a 52-year-old with over 25 years of experience within the United Methodist Church, a clean record, still in good standing with United Methodism, now cannot serve the church. But a Catholic priest who had multiple accounts of being inappropriate in his behavior is left within his position. Let me do this. Only after Father Crow and the 18-year-old fled to Europe, Italy, may I remind you. Hold that little bit of information right there in your brain. Okay? Only after Father Crow and the 18-year-old fled to Italy did the archdiocese decide that he exhibited behavior unbecoming of a priest and that he may no longer exercise ministry as a priest. Does anybody know what sovereign political entity resides within the country of Italy? Does anybody know what independent sovereign political entity exists and has existed for almost 2,000 years within the boundaries of Italy? The Vatican! Very good, Lee. Does anybody want to venture a guess as to the nature of who makes up the Vatican? For anybody who would guess the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church, you get a gold star. So, you have a priest who ran away with an 18-year-old girl, proclaiming that they were married. fleeing to a country where all he would need to do to escape any form of legal boundaries is request asylum within the Vatican. He could denounce his place as a priest. He could denounce his ordination and seek asylum. And there is not anything any international law enforcement agency could do to root him out and hold him accountable. And I am a threat to women